Hey guys, it's Danny. Today I want to show you quite a special orchid. I have a red-leaved orchid. Isn't she unique? She's very rare and very expensive, and I can't believe I have her. Except that she's not. I'm just messing with you. No. This is a normal Phalaenopsis orchid that simply reacts like this to the conditions in which it's growing. And in that whole case, she's the only one. Because, yeah, that's kind of just how she is. But I know, there will be people throwing all sorts of theories there. From nutrient deficiency, insert whatever nutrient you want. Here I heard them all. To sun stressing, too much sun, you need to pull it away from the window, it's gonna scorch if it's not already scorched. And some with, I guess, more entrepreneurial skills will look at it and say, oh, this is a new variety. I'm gonna name it and sell it for a higher price. There might be other opinions out there, but for today, I think it would be interesting to talk about Anthocyanin, which is the pigment responsible for the coloration of this orchid, and why some orchids are just simply more purple than others and respond with this to certain situations. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. So before we start, don't forget to give this video a like if you end up enjoying it, and hey, why not subscribe? I post multiple times a week and it's completely free, but if you're feeling a little extra, and you can, do consider further supporting the channel by becoming a member and getting access to some exclusive videos and maybe some behind the scenes. Also, you can visit the affiliate links down below. You can also check the merch. We have orchid mugs at the moment, very nice, and also you can use the super thanks option below my videos. Righty, so first, where do we unpack this? How do we start? Well, let's explain why this orchid has red leaves. Well, because it has produced an incredible amount of anthocyanin. Now, anthocyanin is the pigment, which is usually red or purple, which in plants has many roles, from aesthetic roles, let's call them like that. Flowers that have red or purple colors usually are rich in anthocyanin, and these flowers can attract certain types of pollinators through their coloration. But anthocyanin can also have a role in protection or absorption of light, depending on the plant. You can have orchids that use anthocyanin to protect themselves from intense light. And when I say orchids, I mean other plants as well. It's just the habit that I have. Everything is an orchid for me. And for some plants, such as prayer plants and maranthas, the production of anthocyanin can even have a role in light absorption, making it more efficient. So anthocyanin overall, it's quite a wonderful pigment. I feel like a little misunderstood, and I feel like maybe still a little mysterious. I think we're still learning about it and why it is produced. Oh, also for some orchids, it is also produced in low temperature conditions, which to me says that it might have a role in temperature protection as well when it comes to cold. Now, the appearance of it is usually nothing to worry about. But in some cases, it could signify an excess of sorts. So let's get to the thing that I think most people think about: intense light. Now, nowadays on social media, kids like to call this sun stressing. But the truth of the matter is, the anthocyanin is not only triggered by sunlight or natural light. This orchid is sitting under grow lights. I don't consider them to be very bright, and other orchids are completely fine, but this particular orchid decided to respond to the intensity of my grow lights with producing anthocyanin. It is a purple flowered orchid as well, so maybe it is actually prone to having more anthocyanin production. It could actually be a little bit of a glitch since it has been obtained in cultivation. I don't know if through seeds or tissue culture. Maybe for this orchid, bright conditions might be average conditions for other Phalaenopsis orchids. Bottom line, anthocyanin is not only triggered by the sun or natural light, it can also be triggered by more bright or intense artificial light. Now, the good news is artificial light, as long as the leaves are not touching the actual bulb, doesn't burn leaves because it doesn't overheat them, especially if you're using LED lights, which don't overheat. Generally, they're not very hot. Then you are absolutely fine with an orchid that has intense anthocyanin pigments. These leaves are absolutely fine. They are not burned in the slightest, and on the bottom, they do have some green there as well. But it's interesting with this one that even the flower spikes have become red. So it's something. It's quite interesting. So in this case, it's really nothing to worry about when it comes to light. Now, in natural light, if you see an orchid this red, you might want to check if throughout the day the leaves are getting hot, because if they do, you are at risk of burning the leaves. This is actually what burns orchid leaves. It's not the UV, it's not like the anthocyanin of sorts, it's how much the leaves overheat. You can have an orchid in full sun if the ambiental temperature is very low and the leaves just stay cool even if the sun hits the leaves, then there is absolutely no danger of burning them. It's not like the sun itself that burns them, it's the temperature of the leaf which starts to damage the structures inside, the cells and stuff, and the cells start to die. Now, in other plants, anthocyanin can have a role in a more efficient light absorption. Just think about prayer plants, maranthas, for example. Sometimes they get a very nice purple color underneath their leaves. As far as my understanding goes, as far as I read, this actually is an adaptation to absorbing more light from the forest floor. Whatever bounces from the forest floor, that pigmentation makes it so that the plant actually absorbs more green light, which then it uses in photosynthesis. Maranthas usually grow in lower light conditions, so they are adapted not to like protect themselves from light, but to actually absorb more light. And anthocyanin apparently can help with that as well. See what I mean when I say it's a pigment of many faces? Now, when it comes to cold, I'm not entirely sure how things work, but I did have on quite a few occasions some orchids that had some reddish pigmentation on their leaves when they have been shipped in cold weather. They got rid of the anthocyanin as I grew them and there was no damage, but since I saw that redness on their leaves, I am hypothesizing that maybe anthocyanin can actually have a protective role when it comes to temperature as well. I'm not sure about heat, so I don't really cook my orchids, and if I ever had an orchid overheat, it was just yellow. But especially when it comes to cold temperatures, I do believe there is a role there, but I will admit I didn't really investigate it more. I'm not even sure if there is more information on it, but I think it does have a role in temperature protection as well. Now let's talk about deficiencies. This chapter appears from time to time as time goes by. Now, maybe some plants will have some reddish coloration if they're deficient of certain nutrients. With orchids, in my experience so far and in my opinion, deficiencies don't appear like you see, that diagram or that drawing on the internet. If the leaves on top are light green, then you're missing, I don't know, iron. If the leaves have a vein and then they're discolored, you're lacking that. They don't work like that, I see. Orchids are very different from many other plants, to be fully honest. And whenever I had, let's say, deficiencies with orchids, they always showed themselves as smaller growth, not so good blooming. I don't know if I can say with 100% certainty that if I had some like yellow patches on the leaves, they were deficiency related or they were virus related or pest related. In my opinion, if I had some issues with like the food I was providing, I only observed lower or poorer growth, poorer performance as it were. So not like veins or anything of the sorts. Since orchids are so slow growing and they regulate and adapt themselves so well to certain conditions, I personally don't go and follow those diagrams or whatever that you see on the internet. When it comes to the red pigmentation, as much as I do believe other plants will be deficient of certain nutrients if they show redness, I don't think it's the case with orchids. I simply do not, because I always like to take into account the entire picture. If an orchid is exposed to bright light, then highly likely the cause of the anthocyanin is the bright light, not the lack of nutrients. If you're fertilizing your orchid properly with good full menu fertilizers, again, there is no reason why your orchid, and it also stays adequately moist to absorb all of those nutrients. There is no reason why your orchid is deficient, unless, it has some diseases, which I've never heard of, but anyway. And again, if you're fertilizing all of the other orchids you have with the same thing and everybody's doing great, Why would this one be deficient but everybody else, you know, absolutely fine? Also, the orchid is blooming, is growing, bigger and bigger leaves, or I don't see like tiny leaves. There's no stress, the roots are fine. There is no reason for me to see any deficiency with this orchid and just have it be the only one in my entire collection be deficient. No, we have to think about the big picture here. And, you know, having experience with orchids and see how they react when they are deficient, you know, helps. But honestly, as far as I'm concerned, deficiency of certain nutrients doesn't really show in the shape of red leaves. So I was saying some, especially Phalaenopsis hybrids, are more prone to having like more purpley leaves or leaf undersides if they have purple flowers or some purple on the flower. It's just a genetic thing, and typically if you have good, adequately large growth, there is no reason to believe you have deficiencies. Now, when it comes to, let's say, new varieties, which can sprout. Whenever we obtain new plants in cultivation, we can have a little glitch that makes that particular individual be different and special. That's how the wonderful black orchid appeared, and then we cloned it because of a little genetic glitch. That can absolutely 100% happen. So is this a genetic glitch? I honestly cannot tell you 100%. I highly doubt it, but it could actually be genetic, that this orchid simply is prone to producing anthocyanin, and maybe other individuals are not like this. Again, you'll have to tell me in the comment section if your Phalaenopsis mani, the black variety, I think it's called black, if it does this. Because if it does, then, you know, it's just the way this particular orchid is. But if it doesn't, it might be something genetic happening with this orchid. Is it special? I don't know. Maybe it is. So maybe if I were like a nursery or a hybridizer, I would think to clone this orchid, because having such red leaves without doing much, again, like my coralites are really not that intense. So having such red leaves so easy, it's quite unique, right? I personally don't think it's like unique enough to clone this particular orchid, but I know some people might. So yeah, I'm not dismissing the possibility of having weird genetics on this particular orchid, but I tend to think not. I tend to think this is just how this orchid is. So bottom line, why are some orchids more red than others? Well, at the core of them, genetics. Some orchids, let's say, depending what species they have hybridized, if they're hybrids, are more prone to creating this anthocyanin because maybe the parents in their natural habitats, they encounter more bright light than other orchids. So they have adapted to make this pigment more because they need it more. There will be orchids that only grow in like shady conditions, think Miltoniopsis. Have you ever seen a red-leaved Miltoniopsis? No, me either. I don't think we'll ever see one, because those orchids typically grow in the cloud forest. Masdevallias, have you ever seen red-leaved Masdevallias, which maybe are not frozen or something? No, because their ancestors simply do not need it. They never encounter super intense bright conditions in their natural habitats. So the species themselves, and maybe their hybrids, will not be prone to doing that either. So maybe some hybrids or species will be prone because of their ancestors' natural habitats, or maybe because of a glitch in genetics. But certainly, this is nothing to really worry about if you know that your orchid is fed properly, if you see your other orchids are absolutely fine, if your orchid looks healthy and blooms and it's gorgeous, if you know you're not overheating the leaves, then it's absolutely nothing to worry about, and you should enjoy it if you like it. I think it's unique, I think it's special, and I think it's very funny that even the flower spikes get red. It's really cute, and the flowers are also a very nice burgundy red. So it is a beautiful orchid. I really enjoy it. I did not pay more for it or anything. It arrived with some red leaves. It was like this from the beginning, but as it grows new leaves, they do get very, very easily red. That's just how it is. I'm not keeping it in the sun. Oh, funny enough, the root tips are green. So typically, sometimes you will find red root tips as well, especially Neophoenicias. Neophoenicias with red root tips are highly priced, just so you know. I'm not too much into Neophinias because they don't really bloom in my region. But as far as my knowledge goes, yeah, they are very appreciated. This orchid doesn't have red root tips, so she's weird like that. But yeah, don't be surprised if some of your orchids will have red root tips. It's absolutely fine. It's the Anthocyanin. Right, so with that said, that is about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this topic. I will link some resources below. And with that said, I hope you've enjoyed today's topic, and let me know what orchids you have that really redden up in your collection. I'm curious to know because I kind of like them. I'll be honest, it's something different. Right, so with that said, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!